Welcome back, ladies and gents. Here we have our final decade video going back all the way to the beginning now. We got the 30s and a little bit of the 20s. As you remember, the Academy's first ever Academy Awards was in 1927, 1928, maybe 29. So we're going all the way back then. And I'm once again joined by Right Dude. Actually, speaking of, let's put the right dude on the right. And Cinematic Sterling, Mr. Gaxiola, and the Mark Father himself, KitchenAid Whiskey Jones. So let's get into the golden age of horror. Now, the first one we have, speaking of golden age icons, let's talk about Boris Karloff, guys. The man they could not hang. Now, this is a movie that shouldn't be good, but it fucking is. This is one of those cases where, like, it has a really cheesy kind of B movie title to it, yet it is very excellent. And I'm not just talking about Boris Karloff. It's a genuinely engaging story. It's a great premise, and it has an overall good a lot of good ideas of just a guy getting his revenge for getting his life taken away from him and the such. And it's like, I could have saved this guy, but he couldn't because of obvious reasons, because they fucked up with his experiment. So he comes back and he is pissed. And it's just like, yes, Boris Karloff is riding this film on his shoulders like a lot of his films are, but the way they do it here, I think, is definitely, I would say it's one of his best performances. Most definitely one of, he's devilishly evil, but at the same time, you kind of feel sympathy for him. So it's like kind of like that morally shade of gray area, a little bit. But yeah, I think the man they could not hang definitely would be included in, what is considered the best of the best. Now, the next one we have is The Son of Frankenstein. Now, I would have to agree with James Rolfe on this one, although speaking of Boris Karloff yet again, I actually think that this is, out of the ones I've seen, I think the best Frankenstein movie. I know that's saying a lot because the original is such a classic and many consider Bride to be even better, but I think Son is even better than that. So this one has Basil Rathbone as well, and it's got Bela Lugosi, it's got Lionel Atwill, it's got like a whole bunch of goddamn talent here, and it's an overall like very engaging and creepy film, and there is a little bit, not totally, a little bit. It feels like there's a bit of German expressionism, like with a lot of the sets as well. But yeah, overall, this was just a really, really great movie. Devin, have you seen this one, or have you only seen Bride?
Oh, I've seen all the Universal Frankenstein movies.
Do you remember this one fondly, or do you think I'm blowing hot air?
Yes, Eva is 20. Yeah, yeah. I love Son of Frankenstein. But like the best part of the movie was easily Bela Lugosi as Igor.
Yeah, I mean, he's usually, even in a smaller role, he just is just fucking excellent. He, no matter what, he always delivers. Boris Karloff, I know he couldn't really do much as the monster, but he still did an excellent job in Basil Rathbone, another icon of the time. Was also, I know he's no Colin Clive in terms of the original two films, but Basil Rathbone did do an exceptional job here. And this is where the gag from Young Frankenstein, the guy with the leg, is just the a guy with the arm in this one. And there's all that, or the reverse. I always forget which one is which. It's been a while since I've seen both, but yeah, with the guy with the disabled limb comes from this movie. The arm. I always forget which one is. I think it was the leg in this one, and then the arm in Young Frankenstein. I believe that's what it is. I think I got it reversed. Anyway, despite it just goes to show Mel Brooks had some sort of respect, actual respect for the things he was parodying, unlike Friedberg and Seltzer, who just like let's just insert pop culture references and poop jokes, and that should be a good movie, right? Anyway, Son of Frankenstein, great film. My personal favorite out of the ones I've seen. I haven't seen any of the later ones. Maybe they get better, maybe they get worse. I don't know. But out of the ones I've seen, it's definitely my favorite. And personally, I think the best is like has the most I feel to it out of all of them.
This is also the film that gave us Igor.
Yes.
Because Igor was not in the original. He was Fritz. It was Fritz, played by Dwight Frye in the original Frankenstein.
Yes, sir.
Igor.
So every Igor in movie history owes this.
He was so damn good that he just kind of became associated with the legend, and so he's really great in this film.
Yeah, it's Bela Lugosi. I think I know we have to describe these movies to you, but like it just goes without saying how terrific Bela Lugosi really was as an actor. He made obviously he made Dracula into an icon. Like everybody goes back to him, parodies him, but Igor as well. He somehow made that an icon. Like the sidekick of Frankenstein. Yeah. He somehow made that an icon too. Go figure. But yeah, Son of Frankenstein, brilliant film. And then the last one I have was
oh yes,
probably the most popular one next to the original Lon Chaney version, but this one's Charles Laughton, Hunchback of Notre Dame. What do you have to say about this one, Devin? Since you've seemed to have seen this one,
the one with Charles Laughton is so fucking good. Why can't I be made of stone like thee? And I noticed this took a couple cues from the Lon Chaney version, because with this one and the Chaney version, the villain is not Claude Frollo, the priest. It's his brother, Jehan.
Interesting. I haven't seen this one yet. All of the old Hunchback of Notre Dame's are on my list. The Lon Chaney one.
Do any of these Hunchback movies ever embrace the actual dark ending, or
one did? It was the one with Anthony Hughes.
I think that might be the Hammer one.
Yeah, 1956.
Okay. Yeah, I think we did have that one on here. Yes, Anthony Quinn.
Anthony Quinn. That's it.
Because I do like most of the Hunchback movies I've seen. This one being my favorite one of them, but my criticisms for most of them being that I don't like that they don't go full out with the dark ending. Just embrace it for once.
Yeah. Okay. Not Hammer. It was a French-Italian production. But yes, Hunchback of Notre Dame from 1956. That was Anthony Quinn, and that was
Devin Sterling, Hunchback of Notre Dame aficionado, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah,
I love the story.
Yeah,
it's a great story. It was
Okay.
one of the many Disney movies at the time that had balls. Like, oh hey, no, this ain't your typical Disney movie. In the first 15 minutes, boom, woman gets her neck snapped while running downstairs, and almost child murder, perfect. And a guy so goddamn horny, he can't keep it in his pants, so he's got to kill this girl. That it just makes it one of the
fucking
best
genocide.
This is the Geek Informant, ladies and gentlemen. He loves child murder.
I do love child murder. I can't help but admire. Like when I was watching Slither the other day, I'm like, yes, child murder.
More reason for you to watch Terrifier 3 then.
I'm gonna watch it at Christmas time. All right, just give me that. I'll watch it at fucking Christmas time. I know it's not gonna be good, but I'll still watch it.
The views and opinions.
I do.
The views and opinions of the Geek Informant do not represent those of the Cool Kids Incorporated.
Well, we're not on the fucking Cool Kids channel. We're on my goddamn channel, and I say I
am the goddamn
this
CEO
channel
of
and
the
the production
Kids.
company of my opinions that child murder is okay in movies.
I am the CEO of the Cool Kids. I am the
All right, yeah, well, you can.
Shut up, Zach.
If there's any CEO, it's either me or Devin. Get the fuck out of here. Anyway, let's go to 1938. The lady vanishes. All right, you gonna fucking calm down there, buddy?
Yeah, I'm good. I
Anyway.
was playing.
So, 1938 was a little bit of a not a great year in terms of actual like real horror, but I'm like, fuck it, I'm gonna include an Alfred Hitchcock movie. Mark, have you seen this one? I'm curious because you're the
I
Hitchcock.
actually have not.
I have.
Okay, Devin, please tell us about The Lady Vanishes.
I watched this during one of my randomizer challenges, and it's really good. But it's not one of my one of my personal favorites from him.
Gotcha. All right. Well, I thought it was, it's whenever there's a year or where I can't fill it out with all horror movies, I have to like include some like thrillers in there because they're kind of close, and there's only so much you can include, or a sci-fi movie as well.
I think that's true of a lot. I think that's true of a lot of early Hitchcock films. Like I watched The Lodger, Story of the London Fog. It was good. It's good, but I mean, it's not my favorite Hitchcock.
Yeah, and we'll get to that soon enough. But yeah, right. Lady Vanishes. It's got Michael Redgrave. It's got a good cast. Got a whole bunch of. It's Hitchcock. At the very end of the day, it's still a good movie because he was a master of his craft. So, master of suspense and all. So yeah, Lady Vanishes. I decided to include it. Then the next one is a Peter Lorre film, The Mysterious Mr. Moto. This was another one that was a thriller. It kind of was not really horror, and I decided to include it. Had Peter Lorre, had like kind of an intriguing premise. And so I decided to ultimately include it. And then finally, Rocket Ship. This was going to the other side of the tracks with no horror, but sci-fi. So this was a condensed version of one of the Flash Gordon serials that was released as a film. But yeah, I decided to include that one as well, even though not really a great addition. There was only so many I could choose, so I ultimately decided on this one as well. But then we have another year of kind of an empty year of horror, Ticket of Leave Man. This was the only other major horror movie that was out that year. Guy has to prove his innocence. Intriguing premise. It's got a crazy serial killer, and it's got Todd Slaughter in it. Todd Slaughter was kind of like an early horror icon in a lot of ways, or a very good actor. So I'm like, all right, let me include that as well. Ticket of Leave Man, Marked Woman, Bette Davis, Humphrey Bogart. Another thriller. Decided to include this one.
Bette Davis.
Yeah. But yeah, great cast. I've heard great things about it. Had a lot of good reviews on Letterboxd. All right, Marked Woman. I decided to include that one. Then finally, Night Key, Boris Karloff. It definitely has I kind of want to watch this one now. I never heard of it before this. Doing preparations for this, but honestly, it sounds like a really inventive idea, really creative, and and it's got Boris Karloff, so that gives us like a little bit of horror right there. You got a horror icon in there, so might as well showcase that. Then we're going back to the actual horror movies. Now, Dracula's Daughter, it's not, I will say both of the Dracula films that are officially in that timeline, there were only two. For some reason, they didn't think to bring back Dracula. They brought back the Frankenstein monster, brought back the Invisible Man multiple times, but they didn't think to bring back Dracula multiple times. Interesting enough. But I will say Dracula's Daughter, this was almost better than the original film, because I will say the original Dracula is a movie I respect more than I like. Bela Lugosi is, of course, excellent. Edward Van Sloan is excellent. Dwight Fry is excellent. But it has a lot of technical problems. It's a very slow. You can kind of tell it's based on a play. So it does suffer in those aspects. Now, with Dracula's Daughter, I will say this movie did Gloria Holden did do a fucking amazing job here. I'm not going to act like she had more charisma than, Bela Lugosi, but she did do a really good job here. And they definitely sneak in here. I mean, this was like before the Hays Code was really enforced. They did kind of sneak some themes of homosexuality with her character in there. Not a ton, but like enough that's it's a little bit noticeable. And we do get Edward Van Sloan again as Von Helsing, who is excellent again. The sound design being a couple years later, where they fixed some of the technical problems of the early talkies. The sound design's a lot better. It's just unfortunately it's a very slow movie. It's kind of boring. It feels a lot longer than its running time. So with that, it's not quite better than its predecessor, but it does do a lot right in terms of what was, I wouldn't say an improvement over the original, but it does do a lot right. I will say, like, it does do a lot of great performances, not just Gloria Holden, but all of them were, great from what I remember. It's been a while since I've seen this one. I will say it's a hell of a lot better than Son of Dracula. Woof. In terms of Dracula's children, I would prefer his daughter because goddamn, I love Lon Chaney, but that movie is woof. Anyway, and no pun intended.
I think Zach was going to say something.
Anyway, Zach, what were you going to say? Sorry.
I will say this, though. To not bring back Dracula countless times does sort of preserve something about the original, just makes it more special in
I
a
guess
way.
so. But I mean, I guess, but there's also the fact that, they brought back Frankenstein and we got better movies out of that with Bride and Son. And then on top of that, with the Invisible Man movies, some of them were just as good, if not better, than the original. And even the Mummy movies, like, they might be just as good or if not better than the original. So I haven't seen a lot of them, so I can't judge. But I'm just saying there's also, like, sometimes they could have just improved upon it. And this one did improve on a lot of aspects from its predecessor. It doesn't quite get there. It's like almost there, but it doesn't quite get there. But yeah, I would say that this is a surprisingly good sequel. If you haven't seen it, I do recommend it. But yeah, Dracula's Daughter is definitely a very, very well made production wise, except for the story and pacing is where it gets majorly dragged down. Devin, have you seen this one or no?
I have not.
I would weirdly recommend it. It's a good movie. Not great, but it's a good movie.
It's on my list.
Yeah, and then we have The Walking Dead. No, not that one. Movie with Boris Karloff. And yeah, it's kind of
a lot of people.
It kind of has a lot of aspects of The Man They Could Not Hang. Although he's not like he's not the reason that he comes back to life. He, is just kind of brought into this experiment. I've heard it's a great movie. I've heard Boris Karloff is great. That's should be, quite obvious at this point. But yes, The Walking Dead. And allegedly, according to James Rolfe at least, the guy who played the ghoul in the original ghoul in Night of the Living Dead, the first zombie we ever saw on film, did take notes from Boris Karloff's performance in The Walking Dead. So The Walking Dead technically inspired The Walking Dead. There you go. So yeah.
Hell, in this case, a lot of people would say, in this case, a lot of people would say The Good Walking Dead. I know John would agree.
Well, I mean, I don't know. Could be a shitty movie for all I know. I just added it because, it was a horror movie for the time. It did get some good reviews on Letterboxd and some good reviews for the time. However, I can't judge it because I have not seen it yet. But I will say the first season of The Walking Dead was great. Second season was okay. Third made me want to, blow my brains out and take a bath with a toaster. But, that's neither here nor there. Then we have The Demon Barber of Fleet Street, not the one with Johnny Depp or not the one directed by Tim Burton, but it is one. It wasn't the original Sweeney Todd adaptation. There were a couple silent ones before this, but this was like one of the biggest ones that came out for the time. But yes, I just it's like a very well known like story. The Sweeney Todd story goes back to like the 1800s, 1700s. I don't know how old Sweeney Todd
Murder,
is,
customers
but
for their money.
it is, um, it is a very, popular. It was very, I mean, still is a popular play and whatnot. So,
Murdered his customers for money, though. Doesn't the story go that he was murdering them out of revenge for losing his wife?
I don't know if that was only added like later on. The first novella to include Sweeney Todd is The String of Pearls. So I don't know if that was the reason. I think that was only added in the musical, I believe. So I don't know. I don't know a lot about the Barber of Fleet Street, which first appeared 1846. So I just know that it's a very well-known and very popular, like, novel, and there's some history there. So, and it's a bit of a period piece as well. So I decided to ultimately include it. But next up, we have The Bride of Frankenstein. Mark hasn't talked a lot. Mark, why don't you talk to us about how great The Bride of Frankenstein is?
Oh God, I love this film. Yeah, it's arguably better than the first. I still prefer the original, but I mean, this is like right there with it. I mean, it's it's kind of like The Godfather 1 and 2 of horror, obviously. I mean, it's
luckily Son is not like Godfather Part 3.
Exactly. Yeah,
thank God.
Well, I mean, it's more like Coda, because Coda is actually really good. So,
fair enough.
Honestly, hot take. I think I actually would prefer this over the original Frankenstein.
That's not a hot though. I mean, that's a lot of people think that.
Yes.
In my opinion, this is not only better than the original, I think this is the greatest of all the classic Universal monster movies.
That's not.
I could see that.
But I mean, that's a common take, though. I mean, but yeah, it's fantastic. I mean, the bride isn't even in it that much. I think
she's only in it at the very end.
Very end. Yeah. I mean,
this might be kind of shocking to hear, but when I first watched this movie as a kid, I hated this movie.
Yeah, I mean, there was a time when I hated Spider-Man 2 and I preferred the third one. We all have dumb opinions as children, so.
Because I was mainly mad. Like, the movie, little me was mad. The movie was called The Bride of Frankenstein, and she was barely in it. So I'm like, oh, this is false advertising.
It should have been called something else.
It should have been called, like, The Bride of Frankenstein, but only for the last 10 minutes.
But, I mean, that's kind of what it was at the time, though, because, like, Frankenstein meets the Wolfman in the last 3 minutes of the movie. Like, that's what it kind of was in the, like, 30s, 20s, 30s, and 40s, where it was, like, very, like, it's not like blockbusters of today where they're like, we got to have like a whole fight scene. We got to have like a whole thing. It was kind of just, insert this little thing at the very end to like give it its identity in a way. It's just a different time. Like, I can't like get mad at it because it was so different from what we know of like movies today. It's just such a different culture of the time and all that. But even then, Bride of Frankenstein is an exemplary movie.
It's amazing.
Yeah. Sorry, Mark.
And I would just want to, finish my thoughts.
Sorry.
But I mean, Colin Clive, it doesn't mess up his character development from the first one at all, because I mean, he's goaded by another mad scientist, Ernest Thesiger, as Dr. Really fantastic.
Greatest gay icon of all time.
Yeah,
Dr. Pretorius is awesome.
He just leans into the evil. He just relishes it, whereas Colin Clive's Dr. Frankenstein was just more of a tragic figure. He was just obsessed with the science, but I mean, this guy, he just loves it. I mean, plus you have some incredible effects with the shrunken little people that he had created, with he had in the little glass jars, and it was really, really impressive effects for the time. So, so it's plus you have some of the classic scenes from that were parodied in Young Frankenstein. You get You get the monster, Boris Karloff. You get him with the blind man. The blind man in the
But I made espresso. Anyway.
This felt a little bit close. In a way, this felt a little bit closer to the book.
It's a really great performance. I think it's an even better performance if he's given more to do, and he has that.
He's even more sympathetic.
He has more character development here, because he tells him at the lid, no, you go, you live, So I mean, he's determined to die and take this down once and for all.
It like I kind of almost, it's not quite like this because I mean the original Frankenstein, the original Frankenstein was kind of like, I don't want to say like, it wasn't like a part one, part two situation, but that's what it almost feels like. It's like the first Frankenstein got some of the book, and then the Bride of Frankenstein got a little bit more of the book.
Yeah.
So it like kind of is like almost like a two-parter situation. Not obviously not totally, because there's no Dr. Pretorius. There's no, a lot of these things that weren't in the book. I mean, the Frankenstein monster didn't look like that in the book either, or act like that. But it's kind of like in a weird way, like the first one had some of the book, and then Bride had some more of the book, because the blind man was also in the original novel as well. And this is, there is also like, there's a lot of speaking of, themes of homosexuality. I mean, James Whale was one of the few that was actually openly gay at the time. There was the idea that like Dr. Pretorius represents like homosexuality, and the creating the monster was like he's with Pretorius a lot throughout the movie, and he's like the guise of like pleasure, and like he's keeping him away from his wife to be with men, and like that was kind of an interesting idea. It was kind of an interesting idea, especially for 1935 too. Yeah, from a man who was openly homosexual. That's also like, I know maybe it's people looking too deep. Maybe it's like, they just saw Whale and they're like, okay, let's kind of include that. But if there is something there, I think whether you agree with it or not, I think there is something to like say there about that, mainly for its time, mainly for what it did, if that was the intention.
Yeah.
So
and just one more thing to defend the
title. Yeah, of course.
To defend the title, the plot does revolve around creating a bride for Frankenstein.
Yes.
Because to go with him, so it does revolve around that.
Yeah.
So I mean, yes, it is a fitting title.
It should be like The Making of the Bride of Frankenstein.
Exactly.
That's
but like what I used to call this movie. Here's what a little angry Devin who hated this movie at the time used to call it.
The Poo-Poo Stein.
I don't know if I'll get canceled, but I used to call this movie Frankenstein's monster comes out of the closet.
Interesting. Anyway, how about them Jets? No, I'm just kidding. But
I was going for a few minutes, and you're still talking about Bride of Frankenstein.
Yeah, here's the thing with all these other movies, nobody's seen them. I just had to add them, but like we actually know this movie. We've all seen.
Yeah, we've all seen.
We all love this movie, so might as well take our time to talk about it, because God knows it's probably gonna end in like 10 minutes anyway. So
like, if not this, then it's either this or Wolfman, but definitely one of the best Universal monster movies.
I don't know. I would probably say Son is probably my favorite, although I do love another one, and we'll get to that soon enough. But yeah, it's definitely up there for me.
Yeah.
None of your fucking business, by the way. And I might have a plan for that, Mr. Diego Lorente. So just keep that in mind. Just keep the first full week of November, maybe. But yes, Bride of Frankenstein, exemplary
Lorente,
movie.
we discovered the Fountain of Youth.
Yes, we're gonna. I've Been Alive Forever. I wrote the very first song. But yeah, Bride of Frankenstein, excellent movie.
Yeah, it's what else more is there to say?
Let's talk about it for another.
Love it.
No. But yes, now we have The Raven. Not quite as good as Bride of Frankenstein, but still a very good movie. This was, the two Poe adaptations that were kind of released back to back in 1934 and 1935, and we'll get to the other one later. This I think I slightly prefer the Black Cat, but The Raven is still pretty good. Again, it's Lugosi acting like a fucking psychopath throughout most of the movie, which is pretty awesome. You have like Boris Karloff kind of being like a little bit of a morally gray character, where he's like this ex-con, but he doesn't want to like be evil, but he's kind of trapped under the he's kind of trapped under the thumb of Bela Lugosi, and Bela Lugosi, just like has him wrapped around his finger, and like the way the way their dynamic works is really good. All the other actors are fine, and it's pretty light on plot. It's like the last like 20 or so minutes where they're in the basement and they have like all the like torture stuff. Like I'm like, all right, that's kind of interesting. That's kind of cool. But for the most part, The Raven is a good movie. It's not great, but I do think it has a lot going for it, and it's one of the many classics of the time. I don't know if anybody else has seen this one.
I have not.
Okay.
No, I haven't
Sorry.
seen it.
What?
I heard
what
about
is
it. My
that?
dad.
I'm sorry, go on.
What's up, Zach?
I heard about this. My dad used to talk about it a lot.
Nevermore.
Oh,
It's certainly better than
My favorite
the.
Edgar Allan Poe work.
It's certainly better than the 1963 version, but yes, The Raven, very good film. Next is Mad Love, which is kind of a lesser known Peter Lorre movie, but it's like apparently one of his most underrated. He has like this like mechanical looking look to him, like he looks like so like it like kind of became like this iconic kind of look. I don't know, it's like he just like looks fucking weird, but like but yeah, I mean, you have Peter Lorre, who is great. You have, Colin Clive, obviously, Dr. Frankenstein, excellent. But Mad Love, I've heard that it's a very good film, and it's got a horror icon, so I ultimately decided to include it. So Mad Love, there it is. Now we go to the Black Cat. This is my slightly preferred version. It's not an amazing movie, but I think it definitely does a lot, right, and it does do like a lot of things that you wouldn't think would be like. You have like devil worshipping shit, you have like cult shit, like Americans trapped in like like a foreign land kind of thing. So yeah, I remember really liking this movie because of how like fucking far it went. Again, it was a Poe adaptation that featured Bela Lugosi and Boris Karloff. But yeah, just overall great movie. Even though neither of these films had anything to do with Edgar Allan Poe's work, I still hence the suggested by, not based on, because it's barely fucking based on the goddamn thing. So it
I thought this movie was just. I thought this movie was just fine.
yeah, no, I think it was good. I think it's again slightly better than The Raven, but yeah, I think it does do a lot right. It's not like perfect. It still has like a lot of problems here and there. But
Wasn't this a lost movie? You were talking about some movie about cats being a lost film a few streams ago.
no, that's a later film.
We'll get to that one soon.
Yeah, but yeah, Black Cat, really good movie. Not perfect, but I think it's a overall good film. Then we get Black Moon. I hadn't heard of this movie. I just, decided to include it. Horror film for the time. Cool title. Good cast. Got Fay Wray. Always nice to see Fay Wray. But
Very
I
nice.
think, it has like voodoo stuff. It has like kind of culty stuff. So, interesting ideas, interesting cast, and I decided to include it. Then we get to the Invisible Man.
Yeah.
The Invisible. Devin hates the Invisible Man, but we all love it. Great stuff. Hold on, Devin. Claude Rains is excellent. This is definitely one of my favorite Universal monster flicks. It is such a weirdly creepy movie, but like at the same time has some like dark comedy in there as well. And just Claude Rains. This might be Claude Rains' best performance. Maybe I don't know. I haven't seen everything from him, but like this might be my favorite. Might be the best.
Yes.
Anyway, Devin, what do you have to say?
Here we go gathering nuts and bay, nuts and bay, nuts and bay. Here we go gathering nuts and bay on a cold and frosty morning. And I don't know what the hell you're talking about. I never said I hated this movie.
I know.
like this
I'm just
movie
pulling your leg. You just make fun of this movie a lot, and it's
because this movie is funny. It's so funny.
I don't think it's that funny.
Also, fucking Ned O'Connor.
Okay.
She's so annoying.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Yeah, yeah, she was annoying.
Shut up.
I'm broad. But it's interesting because well, I think the remake is actually the better film and has the better story. I oddly
No. We're not going.
What you don't like the remake?
I love the remake, but the original is by far
you.
fucking superior.
I was gonna say
Not even in
the original is
same
iconic.
ballpark.
The original is iconic.
It has
I will
Claude
let-
fucking Rains. Claude fucking Rains owns in this movie.
Claude Rains owns Elizabeth Moss. Elizabeth Moss is Claude Rains' bitch. So
I love
and good because Elizabeth Moss
She's
is
great.
a fucking cunt. She's a fucking Scientologist, and she's apparently a huge bitch. Like she pulls the "Do you know who I am" kind of shit. Very pompous asshole celebrity.
Well, I mean, I
so-
don't care about that. I'm just talking.
I don't
about
give a shit about that. I just got to say that
But
because she's a fucking bitch.
as an actress, she's a hell of an actress. I mean, and I love the film, but I mean, it's not the original film. Dear fucking God, no. I mean, I love the direction they went.
what
It was
I
great.
was saying though was that, like I said, I do think the remake is like a better film, a better story, but I do like the effects in this more. It's like I respect the effects in this more. They still hold up, just the way they're able to make them look invisible and shit.
Yeah, you're still wrong, but like, yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Mark, what do you got to say about this one?
Oh God, I fucking love it. It's so much fun. This film is just so much fun. One of my very favorites. I love this character. I love Claude Rains in this role. He's so delightful. He's such a delight in this movie. It's so much fun. It's just funny and terrifying at the same time. It's so disturbing, more disturbing because you could see this man spiraling. You know, I mean, you could see him losing his mind because I mean, he cannot figure this out. You know, I mean, this horrible thing has happened to them in this experiment, and he cannot figure out how to make himself visible again.
Right.
You know, so I mean, he could have a normal life. So, damn.
Yeah. Just Claude Rains.
Yeah.
What a fucking talent.
Yeah. One of the greats.
Did they bring him back for the sequels? I don't remember.
No. No, they
Vincent
didn't.
Price played him.
Vincent Price played him in Returns, and then they made like a fucking like comedy version, The Invisible Woman, and then they did The Invisible Agent, which was again which was an entirely different thing. I forget who plays in there, but it was a different Invisible Man each time. I have heard Invisible Man Returns is quite good. I mean, it's Vincent Price, and I did have it on here. So, but yeah, Invisible Man, fucking great stuff. Great fucking stuff.
Hell yeah.
Now,
speaking of great stuff.
Anyway, we're gonna
King
all talk.
Kong.
Okay, hang on. We're all gonna talk about this one, but Zach called talking about it first, so I'm gonna let him talk first. Zach, you have
All
the
right,
floor.
so I have a very special connection with King Kong. While the remake was the one I saw first, I had been well aware of the original for years, but it was like the hardest freaking movie to find for some reason. I was obsessed with for 5 years trying to find this one. When I finally got to see it, we always think either remakes are better than the original or they're not as good as the original. I think this is one with the remake. They go hand in hand. Like neither one is better or worse. They're both equally fucking excellent. Like this this film is some of the most iconic imagery, visuals, scenes, and freaking dialogue I have ever seen put to film. Just the way that these actors perform these characters, especially friggin' Carl Denham. Like, shit, what's his name? I keep forgetting the names of a lot of the actors in this, but whoever played Carl Denham, man, that's one of the things I do still like better in this.
Robert Armstrong.
Is the
I think Robert Armstrong is his name.
Yeah, Robert Armstrong. Like I loved Jack Black in the remake, but I loved Carl Denham in this. Like just a more well-rounded character, you know. And then shit, we haven't talked about Kong yet. Like, dude, again, I love Kong in the remake, but what they were able to accomplish with Kong in this film was, in my opinion, groundbreaking, man. And especially for a film of this length at the time, to do as much as they did, fighting the T-Rexes, destroying the planes, climbing the building, man. The remake has more of an emotional oomph, like you feel sad when Kong dies in that one, but in this, I still sort of feel sorry for him because in the remake it felt more like the animal that Kong was done as a performance by an actor. You could tell, but in this he's just a gorilla, oversized, but he's just a gorilla taken out of his element, and I still think there's something tragic about that, about someone being taken out of their home and they have no idea where they are, and then they're killed for it. It's, in my opinion, the ending of this one is just as heartbreaking as the original. So I love King Kong.
Yeah. I mean, it's one of those movies that you can't help but love and admire, and what it did for the time, and the fact that it got no love. Well, I wouldn't say no love. It did get a bit of love, but in terms of a movie for its time, it didn't get as. I know it's it might not count as a horror movie. I know there's all that, but I still believe.
I would say that it does count as a horror movie.
I think so as well. It has so many genres. It has horror, it has drama, it has romance, it has adventure, it's kind of like Jaws in a way. It just has a little bit of everything that you can't help but love it. Same goes here. The stop motion is still supremely excellent to this day.
I love the different ways that they were able to create with stop motion, the forced perspective, things like that, green screens, work. So they did it was very creative on how they were able to pull off so many shots with pretty much with that kind of effect, for the time.
Right. But yeah, I think.
What do you guys think about? Would you guys agree in a way the ending is just as heartbreaking as the remake?
Oh yeah, well, I mean, I haven't seen the remake, so I can't judge it. But I think, yeah, I mean, it's definitely a heartbreaking story because it's the way that they showcase it is very. It is very sad. He's it's kind of a shade of gray thing because he does go on a rampage, but at the end you feel bad for him because they had no option. He had no option.
Exactly. I was gonna say that closing line that it was beauty that killed the beast. Just it wasn't the planes that killed him; it was beauty that killed the beast. Kind of thing. It's just. It's
he who killed the beast.
The original kaiju, too, technically. But Yeah, who else wants to talk about this amazing film? Come on, let's gush, goddammit.
no,
Let's gush about this fucking movie.
Yeah,
It's a classic. What more can you say?
There's nothing
I'll
else.
wait till
That's why I
last
haven't said
minute.
anything. There's
Okay.
nothing else. There's nothing we can say. It's King fucking
Mark
Kong.
wants something to say. He has something to
I can
say.
think of fucking plenty. There's so much about this film that I love. I mean, Jesus, there's oh god, he's such a sympathetic character. I mean, Godzilla does get more of the attention, but I say Kong is the better character. Okay, Kong is the better character. Not to say it's any necessarily a better movie, because I mean they're both great movies. They're both 5 stars for me. I mean, they're both amazing films in their own way, just different. But this one, he's such a sympathetic creature. You know, it's almost like a metaphor for the Black experience in America. They go to this foreign land, they take him out of his land, they bring him there in chains, you know, and then when he breaks free, they kill him. Mm-hmm. So, yeah. I mean, he's such a sympathetic character, and you know, and it's over a white woman. So, it's over a white woman. So, white woman always calls in trouble. So for the man, you know. So, but later, Devin. But yeah, it's an amazing film. Kong is such a sympathetic figure. You know, he's you know, you got to love the big guy. So I mean, it's an amazing film. Yeah. I love it.
Like, yeah, and that's and the last thing I'll kind of put in there before we move on is that I mentioned before that, like, I think both this and the remake go hand in hand. They're just as good, but at the same time, I think the remake is like the best movie remake I've ever seen. And that's not because this film does anything that I think needed correction in a remake. It's just, you know, it's like an interesting update where this film, it still works perfectly as is.
I think if I had, like, my biggest problem I have with the remake is that it didn't need to be 3 hours long. Sorry.
I mean, it just goes to show, although I will say it goes to show in the original, even Hitler liked this movie. That just goes to show even fucks like him can like this movie. That just shows the power of how great this movie really is.
Although I do gotta bring up something funny though, because like in the remake, a lot of people criticize like, oh, they spent nearly 2 hours on the boat before we nearly see Kong, and I'm like, it's kind of the same thing in this film too. It's like almost an hour and a half shorter, but it's like we spend almost half the movie on the boat with these characters before we even get to the island. I'm not saying that it's a negative. It's just it does the same thing.
But
I
guess, but I don't really.
Yeah, but I mean, it's, you know, I mean, it allows you to get to know the characters though.
Oh yeah, that's what I love about both movies. We get to know them. Yeah.
Yeah. Just a curiosity question. Has anyone seen the 70s King Kong?
Love that one. It, like, in my opinion, there is no bad King Kong movie.
Have you ever seen King Kong Lives? I've heard that one's pretty bad.
What's that?
Yeah. King Kong
Lives. That was the sequel to the 70s movie. I've heard it's real bad. I will say I did watch Son of Kong this month. Not great, but it's okay. Like it's a decent movie, but I feel like it was one of those cases where like they had less than a year to work on it, less than a year to work on the stop motion. So I don't blame them that Son of Kong didn't turn out as well as the original, but still a decent movie. But yeah, King Kong, ultimate classic, deserves every accolade it deserves. And guys, for all you viewers, I'm just saying it deserves best horror film. Just saying, just putting that out there.
And I'm a, if
and
anything,
this a lot of the. It seems like a lot of the ways that they're able to, like, a lot of they're able to make like effects like this. A lot of them, pretty much all, could be thanks to this movie.
Yeah, you know? I mean, I believe Ray Harryhausen worked as like an assistant on this movie, and like was like his like. Kind of like he like or his like mentor worked on this movie, so yeah, it shows a lot with like the effects, the story, characters, like everything is just pure and utter perfection with this.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Beautifully paced, technicals are just brilliant.
Yeah, like it's one of those films that I have no problems with.
Yeah, I don't really have any problem. I mean, there's like maybe some bouts of slowness here and there, but outside of that, it's an exemplary film.
Yeah. What more can we say about it?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But honestly, this 1932 to 1933, because by the way, if anybody was questioning that, at the time, the Academy, it wasn't originally just the entire year or just like a year, where it was August 31st, or no, August 1st to July 31st of the next year was the original window for the Academy. I don't get it. It's weird. It makes no sense. Yeah. But that's what they originally had, hence why it's 1933 to 1932. So that added a bit of annoyance because I'm like, when was the release date? I gotta figure out which thing fucking came out. So I get, because I am aware, I know people are gonna kind of bet. I know The Invisible Man came out in 1933. I'm aware, but considering there was the time, the last 6 months of 1933, nothing could got nominated because of this awkward thing, and then them changing it to January 1st to December 31st of a year. I decided to cheat a little bit and include Invisible Man for 1934. Yeah. So just would like to say that. Anyway, King Kong exemplary, and this is the only one out of the 30s and 20s that had 4 movies because I couldn't pick 3, so I went with 4. Anyway,
and ironically, it's my favorite of the whole bunch.
Yeah. So anyway, The Old Dark House. This is, it's again great cast. Got Gloria Stewart, Melvin Douglas, Boris Karloff, Charles Lawton. Great cast. It's not perfect, but like the atmosphere is really good. The actual empty dark house is a great setting. Has an intriguing mystery. It's not a perfect movie, but it has a lot going for it. And I think it's an early, it was the common trope of the old dark house, the old haunted house, where like, strangers come in, have to stay for the night, rainstorm, and like things start to happen and like chaos ensues kind of thing. Very intriguing film, not perfect, not the best of its kind, but still a very, very good film with a lot, great. I mean, it's got James Whale directing as well. Forgot to mention that, but yeah, Old Dark House, good stuff. Not one of his better movies, but still a very good movie. Then we have The Island of Lost Souls. I finally get to talk about, now I get to finally gush about something by myself because I know nobody else here has seen this movie.
I've seen it once when I was little.
Okay, but I watched it a couple weeks ago as part of my horror binge, and this was so fucking amazing. This has got to be one of maybe even one of the best horror movies of the 1930s. This was so fucking good. Like Charles Lawton, I haven't seen a lot from Charles Lawton, but he was so like he was, it felt very reminiscent to me of like Anthony Hopkins in Hannibal Lecter, where he's just so fucking charismatic, and just like when he enters the room, you look towards him. Like he fucking has control over everything. He owns the fucking room. He's so charismatic, but so fucking evil. And he's not like, because there was a lot of like, we did have a mad doctor trope even as early as 1933. So like, he doesn't follow into the mat. He's like this like calm, collected. He's like, I can do no wrong. Nobody can fucking touch me. And if you got a fucking problem with that, well, looks like you're not gonna see tomorrow morning. So that's like this. I mean, the rest of the movie is excellent, and I'll get to that in a minute. But Charles Lawton was just so fucking supremely excellent in this movie. I highly recommend this movie. It's it's a hell of a lot better than the Val Kilmer, Marlon Brando Island of Dr. Moreau. I'll tell you that from what I've heard of that movie. But Island of Lost,
it can't get much worse.
Yeah. Island of Lost, so it's just like, and the setting of the jungle of the island is so like, it's very unknown. It's very creepy. Like the atmosphere is ridiculous. Bela Lugosi, he's in it for not very long, but like enough. Where he's the sayer of the law, and like even when he's not in a mood for like again, owns it. Like he is excellent, and I think honestly this might be up there with I don't know if maybe King Kong is my favorite. Maybe this might be my favorite. It might be my new favorite.
Wow.
Like, don't get me wrong,
Wow.
King Kong, excellent movie. Island of Lost Souls might be my and that's saying something because King Kong is an exemplary movie. Maybe better, but I was shocked. I was fucking shocked with how amazing this movie was. It was just like everything. Like, it does lose a bit of steam in like the latter half a little bit, but just like everything like about this was just excellent. And I might even go so far as to say like Charles Lawton is to Dr. Moreau as like Lon Chaney is to the Phantom. Like he's like that good. And it just the setting, the story, it's paced beautifully. It feels like not a lot of like movies of the time, especially nowadays, feel like scary to us. But that's just like, again, as I was talking about before, it's a different culture, different, whole different stuff. But this honestly kind of creeped me out at points. Not like totally, but there is a bit of a spook factor here. And I appreciated that. So yeah. Spoopy, so very spoopy.
Yes. Plus, Layla Hyams got them yams.
Yeah, she was, she was great, very beautiful. I know, but if you haven't seen Island of the Lost Souls, I highly recommend it. I'm probably overhyping it, and then everyone's gonna see this and like this fucking sucked. What are you talking about? But no, I'm just saying,
I've heard it's great. Like, it's actually been on my list of new things to try and watch before the month is done. So I gotta get to it maybe tonight.
Is Charles fucking Lawton? I mean, dear God.
I know that's like not saying a lot because we know how great Charles Lawton was.
Yeah,
as an actor. He was a great director too. Out of the one thing he directed,
seriously.
But I would like to reiterate he did do a fantastic job here.
Oh yeah, I'm just saying I'm not surprised. I mean, come on, look at that cast: Charles Lawton and Bela Lugosi. For crying out loud, man, that alone is worth the price of admission.
Yeah. But Island of Lost Souls, this was not a Universal film. This was a Paramount picture, as it says in the bottom left corner. So not one of those, but it was still, it might beat out everything Universal had. But
golden age for him, killing you.
But yeah, great film. I'm glad I could talk about this one a lot. I was like waiting to talk because I'm like, once I saw this, I'm like, oh, now I get to fucking talk about it now. But yeah, Island of Lost Souls, great stuff. And finally, I have The Mummy. Now, it's not my favorite iteration of The Mummy, but out of the three original like trifecta of I feel like the monster trifecta is Dracula, Frankenstein, and The Mummy. Yeah. Those are like, there's always like, when it comes to each like generation, it's always those three. Sure, you might have some others like The Invisible Man and Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde and all that. I think always the trifecta is Dracula, Frankenstein, and The Mummy. This one is my favorite out of those three. I respect Dracula. I don't love it. Frankenstein is very good, but it does have some slowness in the beginning. But The Mummy, I think it's the best. It's just Boris Karloff was able to, after being in Frankenstein in the year before, he couldn't really, I don't want to say he couldn't do much. It's just like, he kind of only just growled and like, it was mainly the mannerisms under like thick amounts of makeup. Yeah. Here he could like, he didn't have those pounds. He didn't have the prostate. He could like be a little bit looser here and show off like his charisma. And I think he does so very well. It's not a perfect movie, but I think Boris Karloff definitely, owns the movie like many of those horror icons did back in the 30s. And I think he definitely did a great job here, but the rest of the movie is very good. It's very different from its sequels, which were, more about, just a Karis, just a slasher, villain essentially, but this one was more about like the charisma of this character and like him trying to, you know, find like the reincarnation of his long lost bride, and you know that, which was definitely in some other Universal movies at the time. So yeah, The Mummy is great stuff. Anybody else have anything to say about The Mummy?
I mean,
who's your mummy? Who's your mummy?
It's a classic. What else is there more?
I was least interested in The Mummy out of all the horror icons when I was getting around to watching these movies, but it really surprised me. Like, I'd say maybe top 5 of the Universal films.
Yeah.
I haven't seen the sequels yet, but yeah, I really dug it.
I mean, while I would still prefer Bride of Frankenstein, I would say like The Mummy is probably maybe like a close second or something in terms of like the Universal monster movies.
I thought this was a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun. I mean, Boris Karloff just made this film, like you said.
Exactly.
He's fantastic. He's really creepy as the Mummy. You know, I love the vibe of this film. Love the atmosphere. So, I mean, you could tell the influence on the later version of the Mummy, even though it was more campy take. You know, the '90s Mummy. You know, I mean, the basics of the story is there. You know, I mean, his looking for his long lost princess. You know, so yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So, but I mean, really good story. You know, so yeah.
Yeah, Edward Van Sloan was in this one as well.
Yeah.
Also great.
Didn't have the same actors in a lot of these. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, they had contracts with these.
Yeah,
guys,
exactly.
You know?
So,
they could appear in like 50 movies in a year because it was like an assembly line at the time. So, you know, but yeah, I'm gonna say this might be a hot take in terms of the millennial crowd, but I would say most Mummy adaptations are better than the 1999 version.
Wow.
I love Brendan Fraser, but
I was gonna suck it. Look, I'll say this: I may enjoy like the original, or I may enjoy the 1999 Mummy movie, but even I could admit, even as a millennial, that it's not the best Mummy adaptation.
No, I mean it's fun. You know,
it is fun.
No,
it's
fun. It's fun.
Definitely. Yeah, it's a fun movie. It's not a great movie, but it's a fun movie. You know?
Yeah.
So it's like a little
Arnold Vosloo. Fuck you. You got nothing on Boris Karloff, and you got nothing on Lon Chaney, and you got nothing on Christopher Lee. Suck dicks. Anyway, just kidding. I mean, I'll say it's better than the fucking Tom Cruise version. That's not saying much.
Kind of
I tried to watch that, and I'm just like, this is fucking garbo. I'm out of here. But yeah, this was the only one that this was the only year I had. This was the only. I will say the laugh was hilarious though during the trailer that they dropped and then had to take down.
For the Tom Cruise Mummy.
Yeah.
Tom Cruise Mummy, aka please try to like our dark universe.
Yeah, it's like we got the dark universe. See, guys, we totally, and it's just like stop.
And it bombed.
I got a hot take.
And it bombed before it even took off.
I got a real hot take here. I actually didn't mind the Mummy. I mean, it wasn't great, but I mean, I thought it was all right. I mean,
yeah, no, that's fine. It's just like I just couldn't.
It just, you know, I mean, I tell you this, I was really excited to see Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde starring
fucking Russell Crowe. That would have been awesome. I wanted to see the Johnny Depp Invisible Man. That would have been awesome.
That would have been great too. That would have been great. But I mean, Russell fucking Crowe. It's Jekyll.
But it's like when you get Roberto Orci and Alex Kurtzman to write, and then Alex Kurtzman to direct your movie. That's an automatic failure right there. Exactly. They are franchise killers. When are we going to get through this through people's skulls? They are franchise killers.
And I was gonna say that's like the second time that they tried to do the Dark Universe, because the first time
Dracula Untold was the first one. Although I know a lot of people after watching the movie they're like, "See, Dracula Untold wasn't that bad." Now was it? I never seen it, so I can't judge. But like, sure,
I've seen it. It's all right. It's pretty good. I've seen it. It's pretty good. I don't think it's great, but I mean, it's pretty good.
Yeah,
I saw Dracula Untold one time. And it's just like, All right, that existed.
Yeah, I also heard that they were trying to start something with the Wolfman, but that was, I think, only rumor mill, and I think that only came out after, Dracula Untold and them. Oh, yeah, they started trying to do something in 2010, but I think that was mostly hearsay and bullshit. But yeah, but anyway, the Mummy, the original Mummy from 1932, was great. Boris Karloff was great.
Dare to be stupid.
Edward Van Sloan was great.
Yeah.
Now we get to Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. The original pronunciation that was wanted by Robert Louis Stevenson was Jekyll, not Jekyll. And this was the only adaptation to get it right. And then the 1941 version with Spencer Tracy fucked it all up by calling him Jekyll. It was originally supposed to be Jekyll. So I watched this movie. I love this movie. Frederick March needs no introduction. He was exceptional here. Even though Two Faces of Dr. Jekyll might be I don't know which one is better. I love both for very different reasons. Mm-hmm. But I would say I think Frederick March's performance is better than, I think it was Paul Morris, his name was. I forget what his name was in the,
I think so, something like that,
in the Hammer production. But I love it's just it's great to see an Academy Award. I don't know if I'm pretty sure he won. I think he won for A Star Is Born, actually. Frederick March, nominated actor, winning actor, and here he is in fucking Monkey Man makeup and fucking climbing across chandeliers and shit. Mm-hmm. That's I know that's easy to laugh, but it was genuinely really good. And but he definitely gave the torture performance. There was a lot of innovative stuff with this. I feel like they could get away with a lot more, as opposed to the 1941 version. 1931 version had a lot of creative camera angles. It had POV camera work. It had the way that they had him transforming. They did this lighting effect and the makeup, which was really fucking cool.
Really good. The transitions were really good.
Oh yeah, that was great stuff. Mm-hmm. And
Frederick March, like you said, he's great in that dual role. I mean, he's great as both. I mean,
what you saw it recently, so let's.
I did. I mean, because it's fantastic. I mean, his performance is really what stands out here. I mean, he's fantastic in both. As the conflicted doctor, but obsessed Dr. Jekyll, and like you said, the very animalistic Mr. Hyde, I mean, quite literally animalistic, So I mean, he's like you said, he moves like an ape. He literally moves like an ape. I mean, climbing the walls, literally, I mean, jumping all over the place, climbing the walls. He's fantastic. It's a very physical performance as Mr. Hyde. He's very good at it.
Oh yeah. It's not the first version, but it's the first sound version. But yeah, it's great stuff. I love this movie a lot.
I've heard a lot of modern contemporary reviews call this an allegory for multiple personality disorder. Can you see it? I
mean, I don't know about that. But
I don't know. I mean, that wasn't even a thing at the time. I mean, but I mean, you could say it.
That's what I said. Modern reviews I've heard of.
Oh,
I said modern reviews are what I said.
Yeah, well, I mean, but I mean, modern reviews of a story from the Gothic times. I mean, you could say that. I mean, sure. I mean, I think it's more about the duality of man. I mean,
that's what I see
it more too. So.
How you have if we're going by the what was it, Mark, was it Freud who did the ego, super ego, id? That was Freud, right?
That was Freud, Mm-hmm.
So, and I think, I mean, that's what the Hyde represents the id, and I think it's, if I remember, again, I took psychology in high school once, so I'm really burying for this one, but Mark, feel free to tell me I'm wrong. You're around teachers more than I am, so feel free. But I think it was Hyde is the id, and then Jekyll is the super ego, and then ego is a little bit of both. I think, they both represent the reality of that.
Exactly. Yeah. Precisely it. Yeah. You got it.
Okay. Okay,
You got
good.
it.
So,
Yeah, because I mean they're both fighting for control.
Yeah,
I mean, both fighting for control of him. So I mean,
I think and I think I would love to see like an adaptation that's like definitely heavily leans into that more so than, because it's only like vaguely implied here, but I would love to see that more. But even this Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, this is again, it's one of, if not the best adaptation, although Two Faces of Dr. Jekyll is very underrated. Like I've seen people that like haven't given it a lot of great reviews. I feel like me and Mark are the only ones that were like, oh my god, this is actually really excellent.
it really is, yeah.
But even then, both that and the Spencer Tracy one also has a lot of good stuff in it. It just, I feel it was hampered by code, like Hays Code stuff. But yeah, Jekyll and Hyde, one of the best of its kind, arguably the best of its kind, and Frederick March, exemplary performance. So yeah, great stuff. Next is Murders in the Rue Morgue. I said on the Rue Morgue. I misspelled that. That's an apology from me. Murders in the Rue Morgue. I type really fast. But yeah, it's Edgar Allan Poe's story. It's one of the first that had like the detective angle, I believe it was. Like it's like Edgar Allan Poe's story of Murders in the Rue Morgue. Like I think it was it like a police procedural or like a detective story? It's I wouldn't say it started like C. August Dupin is the character, and Murders in the Rue Morgue like kind of not necessarily started the trope of the detective like Sherlock Holmes and Poirot and stuff like that, but I think it like at least popularized it to be like, okay, like, ooh, following the having a mystery, following the detective. This movie doesn't do that. It's more so focuses on the horror side with the Bela Lugosi mad doctor kind of thing. So yeah, it's very fucking weird. And from what I've seen of it, I've only seen some clips here and there, but yeah, just like mad scientists doing mad scientist experiments. But it's definitely an intriguing one. The only thing I've seen of this is the episode that was in Fall of the House of Usher, the Mike Flanagan miniseries. But yeah, decided to include this one as well. Then, all right, Frankenstein, guys. Why don't you guys take the helm for this one? We've already talked about Bride. Might as well talk about
I would say that I still prefer Bride over this. I mean, this is still an awesome movie. From what I heard, I haven't read the book, but I heard that this was not a faithful adaptation.
It's not.
No, not at all.
But I mean, that doesn't even matter anyway.
That doesn't fucking matter.
I mean, it's still a classic. It's still classics, regardless of its faithfulness to the adaptation. But it's like, I mean, Boris Karloff, he's iconic as Frankenstein's monster, Yeah. And yes, I'm saying Frankenstein's monster because,
Yeah. But, I mean, I love this.
Said.
Yeah.
This is my, I rewatched it anyway, just so I could, as part of my, I added it late in my rewatch, just so I could, this past weekend, just so I could watch Curse of Frankenstein. That's how I justified it. But any excuse to watch this movie. I love this movie. I really, really love this movie. I think, we've talked about how Boris Karloff didn't have a lot to do with this film, but I think that's the power of his performance. Because even with no lines, even with all that heavy makeup, he still manages to make this a very sympathetic creature.
Exactly.
You get the point that this is a child. This is a child. Mm-hmm. This is, a newborn. I mean, he's essentially a toddler with the strength of 10 men, I mean, so
scary thought.
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, it's terrifying. So, I mean, but yeah, I mean, he's born and he's tormented by, of course, Fritz, who's jealous, kind of like the jealous older brother, so, I mean, and he just kind of loses it, so, I mean, they try to kill him and he's just a real tragic figure, and you have to feel for him. I mean, it's so many beautiful scenes in this movie when he's playing the music, and he's reaching up like butterflies as if they're butterflies. I mean, he just trying to capture the notes. It's beautiful. That and the scene where poor little Marie, I mean, where she's the only person to show him kindness. And, she hands him the flower. He just sitting down with her playing. He's looking at how the flowers are floating on the water. And he thinks of her as a flower because, I mean, that's how he looks at her. So he throws her in the water.
Exactly. Yeah. It's like you said, Mark, he's honest. He's like a child that just, he doesn't know.
Exactly.
And it honestly kind of reminds me, it's honestly kind of like how like last year, Poor Things, great movie, by the way. Like Emma Stone's character, she kind of acts in that kind of way.
Exactly. Yeah, because they got it. Exactly. Yorgos Lanthimos gets it. I mean,
except with way more titties.
Yeah, a whole lot more. Exactly. Whole lot more titties and a whole lot more sex too. So I mean, but yeah, Colin Clive is fantastic in this too. Dear God, I still love that. That is one of my favorite movie moments of all time, where he's like, he's like, they're trying to calm him down, they're trying to restrain him. Oh, Henry, in the name of God. Oh, in the name of God. Finally, I know what it feels like to be God. They actually
didn't they cut that out of the original?
Yeah, it was not part of the original because they thought that was too controversial, but it is a brilliant line. My God. It's beautiful. It captures this. It may not be faithful to the letter of the book, but it is very faithful to the spirit of the book. As somebody who's read the book, it's very faithful to the spirit of the book.
Go on, Zach.
Yeah, like I honestly don't know what to add to it. I mean, it's Frankenstein. It's alive. Yeah. Love it.
Yeah. It's kind of a shame that Devin had to hop off. Because I would have wanted him to at least do the Robert De Niro Frankenstein quote one more time.
I will have my revenge, Frankenstein. There, I did it. You're welcome. Anyway,
I know.
Fuck that version.
I mean, Robert De Niro was good. Kenneth Branagh is okay. Helena Bonham Carter is fine. And then, that was a movie. But yeah, Frankenstein, classic, beloved. Colin Clive is excellent. The Monster's excellent. Everybody's excellent. Boris Karloff, everyone.
Yeah.
Dwight Fry as well. Great stuff. Then we go on to Dracula, the other classic. But honestly,
out of the classic Universal monsters, this one is probably my least favorite. I mean, it's okay. It's okay. It's a movie that I can say I have more respect than anything.
Yeah, I think that's what a lot of people have said. Like, it's definitely, you respect it for what it did for the character of Dracula, even though it follows the play version of the book. And Bela Lugosi, I mean, like anybody who impersonates Dracula, even if they don't know the name, they don't know the movie, they are impersonating Bela Lugosi as Dracula, because he transcended like the idea of like Dracula as an icon because of his performance. And it's a great performance, don't get me wrong. Same with Edward Van Sloan. He kind of gets tossed to the side a little bit, but
Edward Van Sloan is great too. I mean,
Edward Van Sloan's excellent. Dwight Fry is great as Renfield.
Oh God, yeah. Like I often said, you arguably have the three greatest actors at each of those key three positions. The greatest Dracula, arguably the greatest Dracula. I don't think he is, but I mean, he's arguably the greatest Van Helsing in Edward Van Sloan, who's fantastic. The way he matches Bela Lugosi's energy is perfect in this. I love they have great chemistry in this. And Dwight Fry is a tour de force. It's fucking oh God, what's his name?
Renfield,
yes, Renfield. I mean, he made Renfield such an important character. Dear God, he's great. But yeah, I mean, you could say arguably it is the greatest ensemble of those three. I mean, it's just that I think it loses a lot of steam with the writing. You know, it was in that awkward transition era where they're having problems with sound. You know, there was no music. You know, and anything they had to rely on. So
the sound is terrible. The sound is terrible. Yeah. Like I can't. The thing is, you can't like yell at it. You can't blame it too hard because that's what it was for the time. But yet, here's the interesting part: Frankenstein had way better sound design. That came out the same year. So I don't know. Maybe like just that. I mean, they were months apart. I mean, technically they were part of two different years because if you look at the top there, 1932 to 1931, and then 1931, 19. So it was like a couple months apart. Maybe it just got that much better. They knew how to do it, and then it just became like better. But just Dracula is impeded by a lot of the technical aspects. It's very slow, very boring. Some of the cheapness kind of shines through a little bit.
And also the writing. I mean, like it loses steam at the end. The ending is kind of a dud. I mean, there's just,
they just show up at his coffin and then he's dead.
Yeah. It's just I have a question for you. So I know, like we mentioned, like during the 70s stream, we were talking about the Nosferatu remake. I know since the 1922 Nosferatu movie, that was supposed to be based on the Dracula novel, but Bram Stoker's wife did not want it to be based on her late husband's work.
Right.
Do you think how do you think it went with for this? Like, was it?
I assume because it was a bigger production. Like F.W. Murnau was not like a big production company. This was by Universal. That was a big. So they probably just bought the rights.
Yeah, I mean, they did because this was based on the play, and
it was based on the play.
Yeah. Oh, okay, then because I know like his because Bram Stoker's wife was still alive when this came out.
Yeah, she was because she's the one who sued Nosferatu, makers of Nosferatu, because it was a direct ripoff.
Yeah, because they couldn't use because it was supposed to be based on the Dracula novel, but they couldn't use certain characters or any names. Yeah. That's why Nosferatu.
But it's the same plot, exactly.
Yeah, it is.
Plot,
it is the same plot.
It's arguably more faithful to the book than this one is. So, I mean,
honestly, maybe.
Yeah, but
yeah,
it's still I still really, really respect this movie. I mean,
I do.
Years, So
yeah,
I mean, his performance is
one of the
Bela Lugosi.
Yeah, Bela Lugosi, man, like one of the greatest performances in history, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, not only yours, because I mean, I was just looking at a article today by somebody with a PhD in Victorian Gothic literature, who just ranking the Dracula performances, and he had his number top 10 Dracula performances of all time. There's been a lot of Dracula performances. It's the most remade movie, period. I mean, Jesus, one of the most remakes, and he had him at number 7.
Yeah.
So I mean,
and then Bela Lugosi, he is so iconic.
He is the standard by which everyone else is measured. Yeah. He is. So I mean,
he's not.
As long as you sweat your blood, which was never said in the movie, but that's what everyone quotes.
I think that's a Mandela effect for a lot of people. Yeah,
like beam me up, Scotty. Luke, I am your father. Typical shit.
Yeah, but I would say
when did Bela Lugosi pass away?
Like in the mid-50s. Yeah, the mid-50s.
Died sometime during the production of Plan 9 from Outer Space because they had to replace him, and they just got a guy who was like doing this the entire time to not show his face. Even though, like, hey, look, I'm Bela Lugosi. No, you're not.
And it's like, and I was just thinking, like, he plays one of the most iconic Draculas, and then a little bit more than 20 years later after this, pull the strings.
Yeah, I mean, say what you will about Ed Wood's movies, Bela Lugosi was never bad in them. So
yeah, that's true.
But yeah, Dracula, great stuff, classic. We don't love it, but we do respect it. So
very, very much respect it.
Then the Bat Whispers. Honestly, the only thing that this movie is basically known for nowadays is that it gave Bob Kane the original inspiration for Batman, and then Bill Finger actually did something with it, and then Bob Kane profited off his legacy, and he died in poverty because Bob Kane is a fucking asshole. But I mean, that has nothing to do with this movie. I just have to mention every time Bob Kane's a fucking asshole. So, anyway, Bat Whispers. It's a decent. I will say this is one of those movies that's like, how like sometimes, like especially with the early days, you can tell that it's just like they stuck a camera somewhere and they just let things play out because they didn't really, and they had to like keep the microphone in one place because like early talking. So they just kind of let the fucking action kind of go around the camera. They do that a lot here, but at the same time, they also have a lot of innovative camera work, a lot of really like dark shadows, a lot of innovative cinematography. So that's definitely something worth noting here. It does have a lot of awkward comedy. Like there's this maid character that honestly makes the Chicken Invisible Man look like decent by comparison. Because she's just fucking, I'm just like, Bat, fucking kill her already. Jesus Christ. But yeah, please. Bat Whispers, it's an intriguing, like it has a lot of components. It's more of like a mystery whodunit heist kind of thing. But it's still a it's a good movie. It's not great, but it's a good movie. It doesn't have a lot to it, but overall decent time. I will say it has a lot of innovative camera work for its time, especially like surprising for its time. So I have to mention that. Like that's probably the best thing that this movie has. Has some interesting moments here and there, has some good bits of like horror and comedy and all that, but yeah, decent flick. Next is The Cat Creeps. Unfortunately, nobody here can say anything about this movie because, unfortunately, this movie is lost. So, Zach, this is the one that we were talking about before. The Cat Creeps. It is, I believe, a remake of The Cat and the Canary, which eventually did get remade, I think, later on in the 40s. I don't know if it's all the same, but I believe, I think that's what it was. But yeah, The Cat Creeps. This and its Spanish production are both lost. So I know that's maybe to some of you watching that might be cheating, but it's not. If you consider it for the time, like I imagine what the Academy would choose. That's what like the whole thing was here. What would the Academy choose? And maybe for the time they would have chosen this for best horror film as a nomination. So that's, I know it's like hard to like really talk about this. It's hard to really say anything because it's like nobody can say anything about it because it's lost. So, but I would like to, I just wanted to put something here as something like for the time the Academy probably would have nominated it. So I decided to include it, but it is unfortunate about all the lost films that unfortunately will probably never see the light of day. Anyone asked me, hey, if you have a time machine, what would you do? I would go back and find every goddamn lost movie, even if it fucking kills me, because I am huge for film preservation and film archivists, all of that. Like this as an art form, this as an industry, it needs to be saved as much as possible. So just would like to point that out as well. So I know this is not the best choice, but I was like thinking for the time what the Academy would choose. So it's sad, but it's unfortunately a reality that people have to live with. Because people at the time, they didn't think that, this film thing, that's not going to be anything. That's not going to like amount to anything. Toss it. Who cares? Like, and that's the unfortunate part. Yeah. So that's The Cat Creeps. Unfortunately, none of us can really say anything about it, but I gave my reasons. So best we move on. Next is kind of a bit of a cheating one, but the Phantom of the Opera, I believe it was 1920, the Lon Chaney version, got a re-release in 1929 with different music. Now, I don't know if this would actually count, but I'd like to think it would, and if it doesn't, then fine. I fucking cheated. Sue me. This is one of the greatest fucking movies of all time, with one of the greatest performances of all time, and one of the greatest horror movies ever made. So, if you don't like it, fucking bite me. It's my fucking channel. I can do what I want. So, The Phantom of the Opera, even though it's a re-release, the original version is, as I said, it's one of, like, Lon Chaney did a lot of great things in his lifetime. He's the man of 1,000 faces. Him and his son are both horror icons in their own right. And what he, like, I've seen a few Phantom of the Opera adaptations. I've seen the one on Broadway. I've seen the Claude Rains version, another good performance. But without seeing many of them, I think I would even jump the gun and say nobody would ever come close to Lon Chaney's performance. I think that, like, I would genuinely believe that, like, Lon Chaney, what he managed to do here, despite the fact it had a lot of studio meddling for the time, ironically, there was like 7 different cuts of the movie. Like, one of them focused on comedy, one of them focused on horror, one of them focused on romance. It was like a whole rigmarole. And, you know, the fact that they managed to actually, like, shit out anything halfway decent, let alone one of the greatest horror films of all time, with one of the greatest, you know, performances of all time, is saying something. So is it cheating? Maybe. One, I don't care, because at this point I'm at my tail end and we're almost done. So even if it doesn't count, I'll say, you know what, maybe in this universe, in this alternate universe, it counts. And maybe the Academy will be like, you know what, even though it's a re-release, we'll count it because the original was so good that we have to give it some sort of nomination. So Phantom of the Opera, Lon Chaney. I've talked too long. Mark, what do you have to say about Phantom of the Opera?
Oh, it's fucking fantastic. I mean, Jesus, Lon Chaney just dominates this movie. Dear God, I mean, it has such atmosphere. Oh my God, it has such great atmosphere. Lon Chaney is incredible. I mean, you could just feel the power of his performance. That great scene where, you know, he's unmasked, he turns to the camera like, and it's like, oh my God, wow. It's such a great scene. Jesus. It's fantastic. Absolutely fantastic. So, I mean, he's much more monstrous in this, you know, I mean, like literally. So, I mean, but it's really fantastic. He's not like sympathetic, like in the later versions. He's actually like a monster, but he is actually fantastic. Yeah, and the great thing is, I mean, it's about an opera singer, so normally they're singing in this, you know. So I mean, especially we're used to the, you know, the Andrew Lloyd Webber musical and shit. But I mean, this is a silent film, and it still really, really works as a horror film even today.
Right. But this was like a very tried and true, like, really just overall great horror film. Yeah. I don't know what the fuck is going on in the poster. He looks like a fucking bird demon. I don't know what the fuck is going on there. Interesting poster, but yeah, Phantom of the Opera is just, that movie is just so fucking good.
Yeah, I think probably because, you know, he would often, you know, stand up in the rafters, you know, and watch the goings-ons, maybe like a bird or something. I don't know.
Yeah, I guess so. But yeah, Phantom of the Opera, fucking great shit. Anyway. Yeah. Mysterious Island, that's a long ass synopsis, but yeah, this was kind of a last minute. This and the next one were last minute replacements because of I didn't realize the gravity of certain things. Like one of the ones I chose was apparently a bad movie. I was like, maybe I'll just declare it, like, you know, let me replace it. And then one of them was a foreign film, and those were not being, you know, were around for the time. So I decided on the Mysterious Island, and this sounded like a really fucking cool idea. Honestly, now I kind of want to watch this movie. I don't think that this is based on I don't think this is based on the Jules Verne book. I don't think so. But I think this had a, you know, really, really interesting, you know, plot line, and I'm like, that sounds cool. That sounds pretty cool. But anyway, so yeah, this is, you know, part science fiction, part no, it is based on the Jules Verne novel. Okay, cool. So
it sounds like Jules Verne.
Yeah. But yeah, this sounds fucking awesome. Like, I kind of want to watch this now. It kind of sounds like the Trip to the Moon, George Méliès's film.
Oh yeah.
Kind of has that similar vibe, but yeah. So I was like, you know, Jules Verne classic. I guess. Well, I didn't choose it based on Jules Verne because I didn't find that out until now. But I'm like, Mysterious Island. I'm like, is that Jules Verne? I'm like, nah, it can't be. And then it was brain fart. But yeah, Mysterious Island. Might as well include it. Next up is The 13th Chair. This was, Ghost Story, Todd Browning. I'm like, all right, that's got some merit. Todd Browning is great, usually pretty great. Made a lot of great horror movies, so I decided to include this one. So yeah, I don't think anybody's seen this one, so we're moving on. Then we have The Last Warning. This was, kind of has Phantom of the Opera vibes a little bit. Yeah, God. Carl Lammle, fucking that man produced like 1,000 movies. Like, goddamn. Mm-hmm. With The Last Warning, I thought this was a intriguing idea, and I ultimately decided to pick it based on its, as well as for the time. And I always look at like the critical reception on modern and from the time. So I'm like, okay, let's see what it is like. And so I'm actually, kind of, there's something there like, oh yeah, the Academy would actually nominate this one. Then The Haunted House, more comedy than horror, but I ultimately decided to include it because there might have been like some overlap there. But yeah, The Haunted House kind of sounds like a Twilight Zone episode. But yeah, Haunted House is another one. We're kind of losing steam a bit because none of us have seen any of these movies. But yeah, Haunted House. And then honestly, I kind of wanted to go for this one because that's a fucking bomb ass title. Like, there's 7 footprints to Satan. Like, that sounds metal as fuck. Not gonna lie. So I decided to go, but it had like an intriguing, premise, and I'm like, all right, sure, let's give it a nomination, and as well as again, the typical stuff, as I've said, for the time and all that, decided to give it a nomination. And now we're getting to the final year. The Unknown, Lon Chaney, classic. Joan Crawford. Damn, I didn't know she was that old. Then you have Todd Browning. But yeah, The Unknown. This was. I know Devin has seen this movie. Shame he couldn't join us, but I've heard. But I saw his rating. He said it was very good. And then on top of the fact, it's like it is a revered movie. Like, not just because of Lon Chaney, but I've heard it's an excellent movie. So yeah. Then The Cat and the Canary, another one, kind of has a little bit of the comedy horror vibe. But yeah, Cat and the Canary. I don't think this one is lost. I believe this one actually you can go out and watch it. I think the Cat Creeps might be different. Because I know that there was The Cat and the Canary, then there was another movie called The Cat and the Canary, and I think that one was remade, but I don't know. I would have to check my sources on that one. But yeah, The Cat and the Canary, another, I've heard it's a revered movie, so I decided to add it. And then The Lodger. Mark, can you please, for the love of God, talk about this? Because we had to speed through 7 movies because we had nothing to say. So please, for the love of God.
Yeah,
I've only seen the remake, so you can.
It's a very good movie, very atmospheric. Early Hitchcock. You can see the makings of the master in there. You already have the Hitchcockian, normal Hitchcockian things, and tropes like mistaken identity. The wrong man trope, so I mean, you get this guy and he's a lodger, this one lodger, then his landlady becomes convinced because of the odd hours he keeps and everything, she becomes convinced that he is Jack the Ripper. And he makes great use of atmosphere, the fog and everything. The fog is like a character in and of itself in this film. So, I mean, A Story of the London Fog is very accurate. So, I mean, it's like a character itself in this film. So he does, of course, it's Hitchcock. He does a great job of creating atmosphere with the fog and everything, the camera angles and everything. Very expressionistic camera angles and everything, but it's very good. So I mean, but It's really solid film. This was
it's definitely on my list now because well, I had the remake because I told you about it. I'm like, hey, Mark, gotta watch the 40s movie. It's a remake of a Hitchcock movie. Go fetch, go have fun.
Yeah, it is. It is. It is. I appreciate that too. It's one of the few good remakes of the Hitchcock film.
I'll definitely see. I know it's not like
it's very different,
like amazing Hitchcock. I know that, but I'm still curious because it seems like a very intriguing film. And
because I think the actor in the remake, I forget his name. I think he probably
Laird Crager.
Job. Huh?
Laird Crager.
Yeah, Laird Crager. Yes, you're right. Yes, thank you. He probably did a better job. Not that the guy in this one was bad. He wasn't, not at all. But I mean, it's just that not at all. I mean, he and the girl had great chemistry in this. I mean, but I mean, I think this one is probably better made than that one, though. I mean, this one definitely had more atmosphere than the original. Than the
interesting. So, definitely interesting.
Yeah.
I mean, that might have something to
do with,
them
both. I have them like the same rating. They're both really good. Different.
I mean, I would imagine, maybe because the lodger in the 40s had a bit of that Hays Code, like they couldn't do as much as they wanted. They still got away with a lot of shit.
They
but
did
not quite as much.
And it did have that ambiguous ending. So Alexa,
turn on the goddamn back.
My son, ladies and gentlemen. Alexa, turn on the back.
Alexa, stop being a bitch. But yes, so that's our final film of this entire thing. Now, as I have mentioned many a times before, anybody who's watching, please go and pick your favorites of this. I know it's really hard because, I mean, one of these is a lost movie, and not a ton of people have seen 30s and 20s movies, but do your best. I know it's difficult. And remember, you only have today and tomorrow to actually vote. So please go vote because it'll end on October 30th at 11:59 p.m. And that's the last you can, vote. So please go do that, as well as, last minute votes. All of the links are in the description below from the 2020s to the 1920s. So you have everything and everything in between. So thank you for joining us on this little crusade. The results will be on Halloween. Whether I'm joined by people is entirely up to them because people get busy on Halloween. That's fine. So, we will see for that. But thank you for joining us on this, very intriguing alternate history. Had a lot to say. I mean, I'm sure people will be like, you're fucking wrong about the nominations. But, we tried our best in terms of what the Academy would actually nominate. But again, thanks for watching. Thank you to the gentlemen who could join me today. Right Dude, Mark Father, and Zach, as well as Devin, who had to leave early because he's a busy boy. But thank you, gentlemen, and thank you for watching. I love you. I appreciate you. Subscribe and like and comment, as the known YouTubers would say. But until then, see you Halloween.